So in this week's detail time, I'll focus on the Calvin. The Calvin in itself is a pretty pretty straightforward design. It's an oversized button up. So you would just kind of assume it was like simple. It's far from that. It actually is extremely difficult. But just for like subtle details, if you see each pocket, one has a flap, one doesn't. Now again, you can say like, oh, that's nothing, I didn't even notice it. But when you do notice it, it becomes really interesting because it throws off the balance a little bit. But at the same time, like it blends, so you barely tell. So it's just it adds and doesn't take away from it. So I think that's really important with certain designs where people try to do too much sometimes, and it gets in the way of their idea and their vision. But with the Calvin, like, it was cut in a special way that it wasn't just this like frumpy, oversized like shirt, right? The sleeves are like the sleeve cuff, the collar are fairly standard sizing, so it's not like it like hangs off your chest, or like is like really loose on your sleeve, so it doesn't look good. So if you do cuff it, it stays pretty good on your wrists and on your neck, because you want it to be oversized in certain places, not every place, just because then it just looks sloppy. And that's the problem you run into sometimes with oversized stuff, is that it becomes sloppy. Now, another great detail is just how well the stitching matches and how well the pattern matches. So if you look here, like with the yoke here, it like matches perfectly, right? And that's so difficult because those are different pattern pieces. And then you have this structural line that goes through it, and it still holds the pattern and it still holds the print very well. The collar, same thing, multiple pieces here, but it flows so beautifully up into it, which I think is extremely important. The sleeve cuff here, if you can see it, it just is a perfect match, like with the two button sleeve cuff. When it's closed up front, this obviously overlaps a little bit, but because it has to overlap the fabric, so when it's open, it matches pretty well. We move the pockets over just a little bit, so it kind of is like a glitch almost. So that was an intentional part of not matching that, is because like if you look, it like looks off, but you can barely tell. Like it still blends in super well, so it just kind of makes your eye focus a little bit more, which I thought was really interesting. And then obviously the back is just this beautiful, perfect pattern. And it goes all the way through the neck. And yeah, and that's the Calvin. Again, nothing too outrageous for this, but sometimes simplicity is the way to go. I think subtlety is underrated a lot of times. And obviously this is a decently loud pattern, but I think it's a very interesting one. And I think, the subtlety mixed with the loud kind of nature of the pattern makes this a really, really beautiful piece. Thank you.